Good day, everyone, and welcome to this meeting. I will be presenting on the African perspectives on animal welfare. Though I may narrow down to Nigeria, where I come from, but I know that the message definitely resonates to all African countries. Yeah. So the outline of my presentation is I'll talk briefly about my career journey, the significance of animals to Africans, the African culture and animals, perceptions about animal welfare, the indigenous knowledge about animal welfare, and then research on indigenous species, which is a major gap that we need to start looking into, and then how the African animals fit into the global welfare trends. So this is me. Far back in 1999, I got admitted at the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, to study animal production and health. And when I finished in 2005 with a first class, I got a graduate fellow program to continue my master's in that same university, where I did my master's in the Department of Animal Physiology. So a year after I finished in 2009, I got a scholarship from the Nigerian government to study to do my PhD at the Newcastle University in the United Kingdom. That was between 2010 and 2014. So after 2014, I returned back to Nigeria and I continued with my job back until 2021 when I got the George Foster Experience Research Fellow by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation to do a research at the Humboldt University. This research I finished in August 2024. So this is my journey so far. So animals are significantly represented in the what is called the coat of arms of most African countries, which tells us represented in the coat of arms actually says a lot about that country and what it means to them. So how important is it? Why do we have animals as a symbol in our coat of arms? That is a question I don't know. So in African culture, animals also reflect in our religion, our religion, whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim or the traditional worshippers, those are the three main ones we have in Nigeria. This religion talk about proper treatment of animals, and even it is said that it is a sin not to give care for animals. So our religion also lets us know that it is good for us to take care of animals. There are also some traditional laws and taboos that forbid people from either killing a particular breed of animal or just maltreating them. So with these laws that have, I would say these laws have served as a means of a conservational effort because it has prevented the local people from actually um, killing those animals unnecessarily. However, there are some religion, especially the traditional religion, that does a lot of sacrifice, and it comes with we say life for life. So there are times when some people are sick and they have to do some rituals, some sacrifice using some animals, maybe goat or chicken. Yeah. So also in our proverbs, we see a reflection of what it says about animals. If you haven't any sheep, you wouldn't know that a fox is a wild animal. It's trying to let us see the comparison between a sheep and a wild animal. At a hunting expedition, you cannot apportion the meat before you kill the animal. So in our religion, in some proverbs, in our songs, this is a song by one of is a Yoruba, because I am from the Yoruba tribe. So he actually sang a song, talking about the horse and the man, that you cannot satisfy human beings based on this, that if the man and the horse rides, if the man and his son, both of them are riding the horse, people will still complain that, do you want to kill this horse, making us to understand that at least you shouldn't overload the horse. So let's go on. And I've also looked at the culture so far, and I realized that people's attitude towards animals and their welfare it is heavily influenced by our cultural background. Some of our religious beliefs and cultural background makes us to see some animals as evil, or things that is associated with something like bad luck or other things, and this has really caused a lot of harm because for me, I will use myself as an example. I actually grew up having phobia for animals like this because of our culture, especially the cat. And we from the Yoruba tribe that I come from, it makes us see them as evil, and especially when it's a black cat, we attach it to witchcraft. So when I started developing this interest in expanding my scope outside just poultry behavior and welfare, I took it upon myself that I will start changing the narratives of what I call stigmatized animals. And these are examples. I have the cat, the spider, and the snake and the bat here. So what did I do concerning this? Because I know that I have a voice and that I can actually leverage on social media, looking for people who really know these animals very well and can come teach my group, which is the Animal Welfare Group Nigeria, about these animals that we have been seen as stigmatized animals. There is no way we can begin to correct our mindset or perspective. So was able to invite a snake expert to come talk to the group about this, and so that we must, for us to be able to correct, that now. So the perceptions about animal welfare, I was involved in an international survey. We had about 14 countries. There were only two African countries that participated in that survey during the COVID time. And we looked at the international perception of animals and the importance to their welfare. So after that survey, what happened? We were able to get three publications from that particular work. But I will take you to the next slide where we got some results. So it was a survey, yeah, and we have this question. I understand what animal welfare means. This is in percentage now. And you'll see that these are the countries that participated in this, and only two African countries are there, Nigeria and Sudan. And you will see from the response, the green bar talks about yes. That is when the respondent actually said yes. So for Nigeria, we see it's just a bit less than 80. So let me say 78% of the respondent actually believed they understood what animal welfare was. And in Sudan, it was far more than 80% that actually responded to that question, that they actually understand what animal welfare was. So in terms of level of agreement with animal welfare statement, there are four questions in this table. The welfare of farm animal, is it important? So let's look at the responses from these two African countries. Let's relate it to other countries in the world, and we could see in terms of the response, it's similar. I couldn't find any much difference between the responses from Africa and also from other international countries. So we may have the knowledge, but are we actually practicing it? That may be another issue entirely. Yeah. So in terms of ranking, I now picked the United States. I just wanted to look briefly at something. I picked the United States, I picked United Kingdom, then I picked these two African countries, which is Sudan and Nigeria. And this was what I realized, that in these four countries, at least, preference was for humans. In terms of ranking, humans came first in these four countries. However, when I looked at the United States and United Kingdom, I discovered that after humans, it was dog. Yeah, and we all understand that these people in this region, of course, appreciate having pets and dog as pet animals. But if you look at Sudan and Nigeria, after humans, it is chickens. So does that really pique our interest? Yes, of course. It shows that after humans, the next thing to an African person is food, what to eat. Not This is not the issue of having a pet. So we can see the differences in the preference after humans. So the rural community perspective about animal welfare. I stumbled on this paper, asking to see that if we actually want to make a change in Africa, there is the need for us to go to the grassroots, because at times most of the people in the grassroots are those even handling the animals. So if we want to make a change, we can look at, this was actually from that paper. I picked the picture from this particular paper that I have here. And you can see that the goal is to improve welfare and productivity of the animals and improve well-being of and health of the people. But where it comes to the community engagement, everybody was involved in the discussion, sharing their values, sharing the norms and everything. And during this interaction, I want to believe that it is at that point that we can, okay, what you have said concerning this traditional belief, how can we alleviate it in case such beliefs are more detrimental to the welfare of animal. It would be easy at this point for everybody to add their voice, engage in a interesting discussion, and come up with ideas that can be adopted within that local community. So involving community leaders, involving religious leaders, also involving influencers, at this point can also help, trigger this discussion and help increase, or let me say, bring out the most benefit engaging output in terms of how they can move animal welfare forward in their community. Now, it involves a collaborative solution. We cannot say, oh, because I'm a researcher, I'm a lecturer, I do my research in this in the university. You just do your research and publish. What about the adoption of what you are getting? How will that result be valuable to those in the community? So let's look at it from the collaborative solution perspective. Now, with a collaborative engagement, of course, we can get to understand what people understand about animal welfare. Let's also take into consideration that in most African countries, we still have the category of those who are not learned, who have not gone to school, but they still keep animals. They still have access to these animals. But because of the fact that they are not educated, doesn't mean that they don't even know what animal welfare is. They may know it based on what they are doing and the practices that they are doing. But if you ask them, from a scientific perspective, what is animal welfare, they may say, I don't know what animal welfare is. So we need to be able to bring it down to the language that they understand and ask them what the practices that they are carrying on. From their response, we'll be able to analyze and say, yes, from what they are doing, from what this person says he or she is doing concerning the animals, we can actually pinpoint and say, yes, they have some level of animal welfare practices. For instance, let's look at the question talking about their perception. If you ask them, can animals be happy? You would get these community people talking in different ways. Oh, animals are happier in the rainy season because they get enough feed and water. They have actually answered the question. It may not be scientifically, but they have answered it based on observational, what they can observe and what they see that is happening with their animals. In terms of practices, if you ask the question this way, what makes Mr. Sheung the best animal caregiver in the community? Because some people might have, oh, how come this man's goats, they're always shining, they're always producing very well? People might be wondering and know that this, no, if you want the best animal, you need to go to this person. So they can answer, oh, probably he's provided them with feed and water, and the environment is clean, and also the animals are healthy. So from their response, we can know what they're actually practicing, whether it is good animal welfare or poor animal welfare. In terms of constraint, we can ask the question, what are the limitations to good animal welfare? They can talk about the lack of resources, poor animal handling, and awareness. Then the needs. What do animals need to be happy, healthy, or productive? If you are able to present your questions in this way, you will definitely get some answers from them. And also, we need to also know that when it comes to a collaborative solution like this, we might also need to involve talking in the local language. Now, there is these huge resources that if we are not very, very careful about, is going to fade away very soon. And that is what? The indigenous knowledge. What do these people know? So at the moment, the indigenous knowledge is the largest untapped reservoir of knowledge. And it is based on past knowledge, experiences, and practices that is being passed down from one generation to another through stories, riddles, songs, and practices. But as most of the youth are migrating now, how is this indigenous knowledge being passed down? If we are not being careful, a lot of it will be lost without, being documented or made good use of. Because I would say there is still a lot of value in indigenous knowledge, and we shouldn't neglect this fact. We should find means by which we can gather it and probably document it, and also we can as well validate it against science to see that what they are doing based on their traditional knowledge, how does science support it in support it. Yeah. All right. So most times, they practice what is called ethno-veterinary medicine using herbs and spices, barks of trees, to treat animals. This is a distribution of woody plant part, maybe the bark, the root, others herbs. They prepare herbs and concoction to treat their animals. And this is also a distribution showing the type of animals that are being treated using ethno-veterinary medicine. So a huge proportion or chunk goes to the cattle. Then we have goats and sheep, and even for chicken. Yeah. So a lot of African rural farmers still practice this. And it doesn't mean it's not working, but how can we help them in this area? So it could involve plant fat. We talked here talking about the plant parts that are being used, the preparation method, maybe it's decoction, pounding, fumigation, calcination, infusion, or powder. The route of administration could be oral, nasal, local application, and we have seen evidences of these herbal mixtures being used to treat different diseases in different animals. I know of a professor in Nigeria who is actually now focusing in this aspect, trying to see how, all these herbs or uh, plant parts, or what will I call it, ethno-veterinary products can also be refined and processed so that it can be available and used by people. Now, what is the benefit in terms of these spices and herbs? Of Till now, we have not seen a record of residual effect. It's cheap, it's locally available, and it's sustainable. And then, but there are some challenges in terms of documentation. How do you diagnose? How do you know the amount to use the site? And lack of knowledge on the application rates and the side effects, perceived as outdated. That is what is being seen as it's outdated and ineffective. And the issue of deforestation and climate change is affecting, most of these trees and herbs are not uh, will not be readily available if care is not taken. Now, one of the ways by which the local people protect their animal is, I'm showing you this. I know for those of us who actually lived, we would have seen chickens that have been dyed using different color. And I would say it's a traditional means of animal welfare because of the fact that the chicks are being dyed just to protect them from predators, right? So we are also protecting their lives. So this is one way of saving them from predators, because we believe that the coloring on the chick, helps to deceive the predators so they can't find the chicks, and it saves them from being, devastated or, consumed by the predators. Now, so there are other techniques that have been reportedly used in protecting animals, such as the use of bonfires, caricatures, vigilantes, traps. Of course, traps you can use to protect, but it's also killing the wild animals, fencing, hunting predators, of course, which we will look at it from the other angle, that yes, we are trying to protect farm animals, but we are also killing wild animals. Poisoning predators, of course. So it is both ways. They are protecting their farm animals, but they are killing the wild animals. So there are different weapons that farm owners use, and especially those that move their animals from one point to another. They use spears, swords, bows and arrow, clubs, and the likes to protect their animals. Of course, they are protecting their animals from wild animals, and definitely they will have to harm the wild animals to protect their own animals. So I want to bring it to our attention here, because most of us here are Africans. We need to begin to do research on our indigenous species, which is a major gap at the moment. And this is an area that I have focused my research on since after finishing my PhD in 2014. Getting back to Nigeria, I was like, no, I wouldn't love to do anything on, broiler chicken. A lot of things can be done, but how much more can I get from the native chicken? And here I've just attached some of the papers that I and my research team have been working on this native species, the native Nigerian indigenous chickens. So I want to use this opportunity to also indulge us to begin to look inwards and see how we can also enhance the welfare, do research on them, let's understand them better, and then let's begin to see how we can promote their welfare as well. So I will soon finish. So African animals, how does it fit into the global welfare trend? One, in terms of climate change, our native species are adapted to the environment so they can actually cope with the tropical environment that they are at the moment. So we can still look at means by which we can help them do better. Yeah, in terms of resilience, these species are also resilient animal species. And if their welfare is not taken into consideration as well, it's going to affect food security. Yeah. And also, their production system mostly supports organic livestock production and sustainable food system. So take home message for each and everyone is that the African knowledge about animal welfare is comparable globally. However, their lack of adequate resources is a great challenge. There is need for animal welfare policies and their implementation, and animal welfare issues differ between geopolitical regions, and strategies should be tailored locally based on economic and environmental factors. And finally, there is need for indigenous knowledge documentation and scientific validation. Thank you so much for your listening attention.
Thank you, Stu.